Okay, Erica, I didn't tell you who we were recording about because I wanted to see if you could guess.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going to give you a hint.
Okay.
Have you been seeing two pop stars be talked about more than usual over the last couple weeks? Maybe their fandoms going at each other online more than
Oh, okay.
usual the
Yes,
last
yes.
couple of weeks.
Is it Beyonce and Taylor Swift?
It's Beyonce and Taylor Swift.
Yeah, yeah, I saw it. I'm so torn
Have you
on this topic.
participated?
I haven't gotten involved. I mostly haven't gotten involved because, like, I love Beyonce. I think she's amazing, but I don't know all of Beyonce's music to be able to like fight the
Mhm,
fight. You know what I mean?
mhm, mhm,
But I
mhm,
know like a
mhm.
lot
Yeah,
more about Taylor Swift music than I do hers. So like I feel like it's
mhm.
unfair. I don't know. So I haven't gotten
Yeah,
involved, but I've seen it.
yeah.
I've seen a lot.
Oh man, the internet has a lot of takes. And I
Mhm,
I did get involved, and at
mhm,
first I sort of tried to stay more neutral and was like, guys, it doesn't matter. They're both top 2. Like we love who we love. This list changes nothing. And then
mhm,
I was seeing one too many takes from Swifties trying to discredit Beyonce
mhm,
because, as we'll talk about in the episode, Billboard made a list of the greatest pop artists of the 21st century. They put Beyonce at
mhm,
number 1 and Taylor at number 2. A lot of Swifties took issue with that.
mhm,
And I saw one too many takes where they were discrediting Beyonce. And so
mhm.
then my second take was basically like, don't do that. Like you can love who you love and talk about who you love and everything else, but don't be out here discrediting a black woman,
I think I saw
particularly
that.
a deserving black woman. Yeah, that one
Mm,
people didn't. There are a number of people who didn't love that one as much, and it's fine. But well, I just sort of felt like I wanted to talk about this because the very first episode of this podcast I ever did was about Beyonce and Taylor Swift. So I did not
mhm,
think that I would have to turn around in season 2 and have more or less the same conversation about how
mhm,
deserving both of these women are and how there's no need to pit them against one another.
mhm.
But it seems we're here again. So
Yeah, I figure
what are you
they
gonna
could
do?
care less. Like, would you agree with
Uh,
that? I feel like they could care less about this list.
for sure. Yeah,
Right?
they are not
Mhm,
bothered. This list means nothing. And the truth is,
mhm.
the list really does mean nothing. Like it's just a
Yeah.
list that Billboard decided to put out
Mhm.
about the greatest pop artists of the 21st century when, by the way, we're only a quarter of the way through the century. So it's like I don't even know
Yeah.
why.
They love being messy. Billboard loves being messy. They do this all the
Yeah.
time. In the words of Haley Bieber, the Billboard lists are garbage. I don't know if you saw she said that when Justin got like number 8 or something. She was like, "This list is garbage." She's right.
I did not realize that she said that.
Mhm.
I personally think Justin is probably about where he should be, but that's a different conversation
I
for a different
agree.
day.
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, when
um,
she put it up, I was like, I don't know about that. And then when everyone started fighting, I was like, I don't know, maybe she's right. Mhm,
well, yeah, the list doesn't mean anything. And like you said, I certainly don't think Beyonce and Taylor care, which is why I
mhm,
thought instead of trying to do an episode about the list, which truly is not all that consequential, I just think
mhm,
people are forgetting, particularly the fandoms of both of these artists, how truly insane their careers have been this
mhm.
century.
Yeah,
And I just feel like let's take a walk down memory lane to remind everybody.
yeah. Let's do it.
Hello and welcome to Two Queens, Two Crowns. I am your host, KJ Miller, founder, lecturer, and content creator.
And I'm Erica Manganelli, pop culture humorist and content creator.
And today on the show, we are talking about none other than Beyonce and Taylor Swift because the internet has had both of their names in their mouth for the last 2 weeks, just going back and forth, bop, 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 bop. And
Mhm.
when that happens, I feel like you and we have to come on and chit chat. We have to.
Let's get dragged
And
together.
we I know. I do think no matter
Mm,
what we say, somebody somewhere is going to get mad. Even though
for
my
sure.
intention for this episode is really just to spend the whole thing shouting out both of them and their accomplishments. Somehow,
Mhm.
I feel like that might make somebody mad somewhere in some corner of the internet. I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like they have a lot more similarities than people give them credit for, and I think one major similarity between them is that they have like a strong family unit, and
Mhm.
their moms have been behind them the whole time.
Totally. I completely agree with that. I think they both have moms who have been there for them from the beginning of their careers, who have supported them, encouraged them, stood behind them through every single thing, and protected them in a
Hmm.
lot of ways. And
Yeah.
yeah, I do think there are some real parallels to their career. And I feel like what's getting lost in all of the bickering online between their fandoms is truly how dominant they have been. Like, whether you
Hmm.
agree or disagree at who's at one and who's at two, I think we can all agree they are the top two.
Oh, for
And
sure.
so I just want to spend a little bit of time celebrating that. So
Hmm.
that's exactly what we're going to do right after this. As some of you may or may not know, I do not spend all of my time chit chatting about pop culture, although I do spend a lot of my time chit chatting about pop culture. I also run a business and I teach business. I have taught at Yale School of Management. I have guest lectured at Harvard Business School, Columbia Business School, a number of others. And the reason I do these things is because I love teaching the next generation of entrepreneurs. And that is why I created my course, Startup Starter Kit. It helps anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur figure out how to make that happen. You might be in a position where you feel like, I've always had this idea and I think it's a really good one, but I literally have no idea where to start. If you are in that position, I know a lot of people who have been there and I have coached a lot of people through it. And that's what this course does, step by step by step. So if you go to my website, kjmiller.co, you can enroll. And if you use the code early access 250, you can get $250 off your tuition. So head over to kjmiller.co and check it out. And with that, let's get back to the show. All right, Erica. So I thought for this episode, we could really go from the beginning, like literally 2000, 2001. Just
Hmm.
rewind a bit
Hmm.
and take the audience through a bit of a journey of both of these women's careers because I especially think in the last couple of years, so much has happened for both of them that people tend to forget just how long they've been in this business, how many records they've broken in this business, how dominant they've been for how long. And it
Yeah.
really is just a sight to behold and something I think that is deserving of celebration, which is really what the list that Billboard made should be about. It should be about celebrating these, once in a generation artists. Somehow, as usual, things devolved into bickering and fighting and fans being mean to each other
Yeah.
online, but I'd rather spend some time in celebration mode. So I'm going to rewind it to start all the way back to 2001. Now, where were you in 2001? What comes to mind for you when you think about 2001?
Oh wow. I was 2001. I was in high school. I was watching MTV TRL.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
mean, I feel like that was my first real introduction to Beyonce. Is probably like the TRL days.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Same. In 2001,
Taylor
I was
wasn't on
also
my radar.
no, because Taylor hadn't debuted yet. So in
Mm,
2001, none of us had heard of Taylor at that point, unless you were, I think, in Nashville. By that point, she was playing her
yeah.
guitar around Nashville, doing her little
Right. Yeah.
thing. But in terms of the world stage, we had not yet found out anything about Taylor Swift. However, Beyonce in 2001, that is the year she won her first Grammy as part
Oh
of
wow.
Destiny's Child
Hmm.
for Say My Name. Do you remember that song?
Oh,
Say my
chorus.
name, say my
Say my
name.
name.
It's such a
I
good
love
song.
that song. It's still such a good song.
And it won two Grammys, including Best R&B Song.
Mhm.
So that song was on Destiny's Child's second album, The Writings on the Wall.
Mhm.
And that Grammy, or both of those Grammys, those were Beyonce's first Grammys. And I'll
Mhm.
just know, I didn't realize this until I started researching for this episode. Destiny's Child is still the most Grammy nominated girl group of all time.
Wow, I didn't know that. I had the
Yes.
cassette.
I
I w
I also had, you know what I had the cassette of? I had the cassette tape of the No 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 remix. Do you remember?
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah,
no,
and
no, no, no. Whenever,
yes.
yeah, yeah. Yes, I
So
had that
good.
cassette. Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of cassettes. I was a Boyz II Men cassette player girly.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I think I also had a Boyz II Men cassette. I had an Aaliyah cassette.
Oh, I loved Aaliyah too. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So 2001, that's part of the thing that I think some people are forgetting. Particularly, I will say some Swifties are forgetting that
Mm-hmm.
the century starts in 2000. Okay,
Yeah,
so and
it's true.
in 2001, before any of us had ever heard of Taylor, Beyonce was winning her first Grammy as a part of the most Grammy nominated girl group of all time. So this
Yeah.
is why I said I felt the need to make that second video. Like, I understand anyone wanting to fight for their fave. If Taylor's your fave,
Mm-hmm.
I love it, I respect it. If you think she should have been number one, I love it, I respect it. But there's no need to try and discredit Beyonce's career longevity in the
Mm-hmm.
process, because she literally was winning Grammys in 2001. So
Yeah.
let's just
Some of us were, listening to the radio, pressing the buttons to record Say My Name.
yes.
And you guys weren't there.
And you weren't there, and that's okay, but we were
It's
there.
okay.
We were there, yes,
Mm.
recording the cassette tapes, and we were also there burning CDs.
We were on LimeWire getting viruses on our computer, just trying to
Uh-huh.
get Beyonce on our CDs.
100,000%, and making little burn CD
Mm.
mixes.
Oh,
Like,
for sure.
it's
Mm.
been a long time in the game. And
It
I will
has.
also say Destiny's Child is widely credited with creating a new form of sound, because so many of their songs, they sang so fast that it almost sounded more like rapping. Like, do you remember Bugaboo?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I remember all these songs. A
It's
bugaboo.
not
A
hot
bugaboo.
when yes,
Yeah.
it's not hot when you be calling me, stressing me, putting my paper. It's just not
Yes.
stop. Like, they were singing so fast that it almost sounded like rapping, and so they are widely credited as essentially inventing that style of R&B song,
Yeah.
and kind of like melding R&B and rap, which is honestly its own genre now. Like, a lot of these
Right.
rappers and mumble rappers or whatever, they're copying Destiny's Child from back in 2000,
For
right?
sure.
So
Hmm.
that's another thing you really have to like give Beyonce credit for.
Yeah, for sure. They were on like Hot 97, which was a
Hmm.
New York hip hop radio station. But then they could
Exactly.
also be on Z100, which was like a pop top hit
Hmm.
station.
Exactly. They were truly kind of like at the beginning of this whole genre bending that I think you see both Beyonce and Taylor do throughout their career, which is just something that I think not enough people like to give Beyonce credit for, but like she does deserve credit for that.
Why did they break up?
Well, I think based on what Beyonce has always said about it, I think it was mostly that she knew she wanted to have a solo career. And
Hmm.
so that was sort of always her plan, was
Hmm.
to go solo. And in the beginning, they used to talk much more about all three of them going solo, because and all three of them did. Like, Michelle
Yeah, they did.
released a gospel album. Kelly released what I think they referred to as an R&B album, and Beyonce
Hmm.
was the one who released the pop album. Like, they were all in
Hmm.
three different genres.
Okay.
But I think ultimately it really came down to the fact that Beyonce knew she wanted a solo career.
She probably wanted a solo career before it even started, right? Who wouldn't?
Yeah, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? She had a vision, and I
Hmm.
feel like she always wanted to see her vision realized exactly the way she wanted. Speaking of 2003, again, 3 full years before we get Taylor's debut album,
Hmm.
2003, Beyonce debuts her solo single.
Hmm.
And it not only does the album debut at number one, the album is Dangerously in Love, but she has
Oh, so good.
five, so good. She has
Hmm.
five number one hits on that album,
Hmm.
which
It's
again, this is her first solo album. It debuts at number one, and she has five number one hits, and her single Crazy in Love debuts at number one on the Hot 100.
oh right.
So,
This is the year I graduated high school.
mhm.
These songs are bringing me back.
Yes. Oh, completely agree. Because yes,
Mm.
I graduated high school in 2004, and I
Mhm.
remember when I graduated, this album was still going so hard. I got
Mhm.
to college, and all I was hearing was "Naughty Girl," or what's the other one?
Yeah.
"Baby Boy, you Stay on My Mind."
Man. Yeah.
Like, that was my
Yes.
whole freshman year. Like, this album
Totally.
went so hard.
And I was in college. I was like, got my Franzia wine. I'm like, yes.
Come on, Franzia. Yes, we were in the parties drinking whatever terrible punch that these people had put together. Anything.
Whatever someone could get. Like,
Dancing to Crazy in Love.
Right.
Yes.
You guys made jungle juice in a plastic container? Get me a cup.
Right. I too
stupid.
would love that. That just literally brought back a memory for me. This is like a core memory of being in some basement. Okay.
It's always a basement.
Why were we in a basement? Okay. Somebody's basement. And like you said, some big cooler, like a big white cooler.
Yeah.
And
on
just
wheels.
like, and then we're drinking out of the cooler, Erica. Like, who knows what was in that cooler? Like, the liquid was loose. Loose liquid.
They would just, did they clean the coolers? Nobody knows. They were just pouring a bunch of shit in there. And then they're just scooping cups. Like, what? Yo. And then someone's mom's just like watching TV upstairs on the couch.
Oh, see, there were no moms involved because I was on campus at some dorm basement, but I just have this core memory and it's hot and it's just loose liquid in a cooler. Anyway.
I think I started too early because the moms upstairs, that was the high school parties for me.
Oh, okay.
Then I went to college.
Yeah. But yes, so she debuts at number 1. And another thing I learned as a result of researching, she became the first woman to top both the singles and albums charts in both the US and the UK at the same time. So we're talking global, worldwide superstar from her first album.
Yeah. Right out the bat, she was a star.
I mean, truly. And I remember feeling that way. I remember it feeling like, yo, who's out here doing it like Beyonce? And it felt like that way from the very beginning, which is wild. Yeah.
Like if Taylor never came on the scene at that point, like it would just be Beyonce. That's it. She'd be the only one. Like Taylor's really the only one that came and matched her energy.
I completely agree, which is why I feel like they truly are the top 2 because Beyonce, I think, paved the way in so many ways and just like broke so many barriers and just has always been about like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it times a trillion. And I remember watching her tour. Her tour came out on DVD. I think was it called the Beyonce Experience? Anyway.
I think so. Something like that.
Yeah. And I remember I got the DVD. This is, again, my freshman year of college. Okay. So this was 04, 05. And maybe I got it for Christmas when I went home for Christmas. And I remember I came back and my husband and I, and at the time he was just my best friend. You know, we didn't know that we would fall in love and get married. But I remember my husband and I sat in his dorm room and watched it. And we watched it more than once because we were blown away. We were like,
oh, wow.
We had never seen anything like it. Just because, and also he and I are both singers. So we were appreciating it just from like her breath control, because we were in an a cappella group together, her breath control and her singing, but then like the fact that she was doing full choreo the whole time. I mean, we were blown away. And this was her first album. This is how she debuted. So like really and truly, when people try to discredit that, that's when I start to get upset.
I think she came from like a church background, right? Didn't she sing in church?
I do think she sang in church. I don't know that her family is ultra religious, but yes, because she used to, the Destiny's Child, they used to always put a little gospel song at the end of their albums.
I remember that. Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think that's why I'm not like super familiar with all of Beyonce stuff, because she kind of like jumped into both worlds, and I would know all the radio hits, but then I would just not, I guess I didn't like have the CDs and stuff. So I didn't like actually learn all the songs. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I will say about Beyonce is over the years, I would say after her call it third, fourth album. So her third album was I Am Sasha Fierce. I think she stopped caring nearly as much about marketing herself and marketing her albums. It became a lot less of a priority for her. And so I think as a result, if you weren't already a fan of hers, like she wasn't building a bigger and bigger tent, at least on purpose. You sort of had to find her more than she was, more than her music was going to find you. You know what I mean? And I think Taylor is almost in a completely different realm, because I feel like Taylor's music for a while now, even if you didn't want to hear it, you hear it.
You're going to hear it, It was everywhere. You're going shopping. It's in the stores.
It's everywhere. And I think Beyonce, she's just become a little less interested in the marketing machine of it
Mhm.
all. So it makes sense to me that you're like, yeah, the singles I know, but like I wasn't, fully
Yeah.
versed in all the albums or whatever. But let me tell you this, and this is what's
Mhm.
funny to me. So in 2003, her debut album comes out and she had a number one album. I was curious who else had a number one album in 2003, because to me, for that to be over 20 years ago that your debut
Mhm.
album came out, and you are still today in 2024 releasing number one albums,
Yeah.
I was like, who else is doing this? So let me tell you some of the other people who released
Okay.
number one albums in 2003.
I was
Okay.
gonna guess Justin Timberlake. I don't know why.
Not in '03, but there was
Mhm.
50 Cent,
Okay, yeah. I remember
Nora,
all that.
Nora Jones,
Okay.
uh, Evanescence, Linkin Park,
Mhm.
Hilary Duff, R. Kelly.
Ooh. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Like, not to be rude, but we've all fallen off. Every single one of them.
Every single one of them. You have not heard a hit album or a hit song from any of those names in years.
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 Mm-mm.
Truly. And they all had not just albums, but number one albums in 2003. And so I think
Mhm.
it just is important to put into perspective that what she has achieved and is continuing to achieve is
Mhm.
unheard of. Nobody else is doing it.
Totally. And would I be wrong to say that Beyonce kind of had like more like I love you type songs where like Taylor Swift had a lot of like breakup songs?
I think beyond so this is another thing that I end up thinking a lot about, like why Taylor has been able to achieve, I would say, like just a much higher level of commercial success, particularly call it
Mhm.
in the last 5 years, maybe 4 or 5 years.
Mhm.
And I do think part of it is the subject matter of their
Mhm.
songs, because first of all, Beyonce has been with Jay-Z for 20 years now.
Mhm.
She's been in the same relationship with the same person.
Totally. And there's no aside from the Solange elevator incident, there's not a lot of drama. All
There's not
right.
a lot of drama. Like
Mhm.
literally that incident was the only time we even saw anything publicly happen. And then
Mhm.
Lemonade, obviously the album Lemonade, where she
Right.
outed
Yeah.
him for cheating on her. Otherwise, they
Which
are
is
very,
crazy.
which is crazy, but they are very
Mhm.
tight-lipped
Mhm.
and kind of boring. I mean, they're a married couple. It's like, who cares? I mean,
Yeah.
it's a little bit like, all right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Where
Yeah, I get
Taylor has
it.
been in many public relationships and many
Mhm.
public breakups, like over the course of her career. And I'm not in any way reducing her music to that, because she talks about far more than just her relationships.
For sure.
But in terms of content matter accessibility to a broad public,
Mhm.
I think Beyonce, she started exploring more with regards to race
Mhm.
and, how Black women move in the world, how we're
Mhm.
treated in the world, how genres are open and closed to certain people of certain skin types. Like, I feel like her music has moved pretty far beyond the scope of just like a
For sure.
relationship. And I think while Taylor has certainly explored a lot of topics outside of relationships, she also continues to write a lot of music about relationships. I mean,
Mhm.
most of Tortured Poets Department at least read as songs about someone she was either breaking up with or
Mhm.
leaving or kind of finding her way to, right? Like that
Yeah,
felt like most of the
for
album.
sure.
And I hesitate to say that because I don't want anyone to think I'm trying to reduce her music. I'm not. I think she's a
Yeah.
brilliant songwriter, but I do feel like the content matter she writes about might seem more accessible to a broader audience of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, and like for me, I relate to a lot of that music because
Hmm.
I've dated some losers.
Hmm.
And so, I feel those lyrics as if I wrote them from my
Hmm.
chest, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
I feel like that's probably the perspective of a lot of her fans, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they relate to it, they hold on
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah, totally. Well, and speaking of Taylor, so then in 2006, that's when we get Taylor Swift's debut album. And I will mention at this point, when she's debuting, Beyonce now has 7 Grammys to her name because
Wow.
she won 5 Grammys off of that debut album. All right, so now we're in 2006. Beyonce's got her 7 Grammys. She's released her second album. Taylor's releasing her first album. And fun fact, she wins the CMT Music Awards Breakthrough Artist Award, which
Okay.
I didn't know because I certainly have never watched the CMT
Yeah.
Music Awards. Okay.
Same.
Okay. I have no interest. It will literally never happen unless they invite Beyonce
Right. And
and
I
give
feel
her
like they
some awards.
snubbed her. So like now I don't
Yeah.
ever want to watch CMT. If you're listening, I don't ever want to watch. Give
Yeah.
Beyonce what she deserves.
So yeah, that's not for me. But yes, she did. Taylor did win the CMT Music Awards Breakthrough Artist Award. And what I think is important to note here is that when Taylor debuted, she was a country artist. Like she was,
Yes.
that's what the album
And there
was. It
was
was a country album.
a major country artist backed her, right? Like it was like
Well,
Toby Keith or like one of the
oh yeah,
big.
yeah, yeah, yeah. She was supposed to go on tour with one of them. What was his name? Keith
Mhm.
somebody. Keith
I
Urban?
don't.
I don't
Maybe
know.
Keith Urban could have
Was
been.
it
I
Keith
can't
Urban?
remember which one it was.
Yeah, I can't either.
We'll
I know
we'll have to
the
look it
Swifties will
up.
be mad. I apologize, fellow
Swifties,
Swifties. Don't
get
be
in
mad
the
at us,
comment
okay?
section, Swifties.
Don't be mad at us. But yes, she was, and I feel like because that first album was also the album where she wrote that song Tim McGraw, and I think
Mhm.
he spoke very highly of her early on. So I think very early on she got a lot of acclaim within country. But you
Yeah.
have to remember, again, this gets back to why we cannot discredit Beyonce. First of all, this list was greatest pop artists of the 21st century,
True.
and Beyonce from the very beginning was releasing pop albums. Her
Mhm.
2003 album was a pop album. So not only was Taylor not on the scene yet, but then when she entered the scene, she entered as a country artist. And it took her a few albums before we actually got a purely pop album. That wasn't until 1989, which was her
Mhm.
fifth studio album.
Mhm.
So I think that's just also important context to say. Now I don't say that in any way to discredit Taylor. In fact, I think it is a credit to her that
Mhm.
she has shifted genres the way she has, and that she has been so willing to push into new genres and just, you know, to make the art that she wants to make, whether it's country or pop or indie or folk or whatever it might be. I think that is a credit to her. But I also
Mhm.
think if we're talking about impact on pop music and being the greatest pop artist of all time, Taylor didn't start as a pop artist. Like, I do think we have
Mhm.
to remember
For
that.
sure. I think that this beef, imaginary beef, because that's like what it is. And I
Yeah.
think to credit Beyonce, Beyonce does a really great job that if there even was beef, we wouldn't know about it because she's like puts women before everything. She's like,
Hmm.
we're besties. I'm
Yeah.
gonna show up to the, whatever the movie, and
Hmm.
we're besties. But I think that catalyst of Kanye West at the award show where he got up and was
Hmm.
like, Beyonce had the greatest album of all time. I think
Yeah.
that's where the fandom beef really began, and
Yes.
and a lot of people just never got over it, me
Never got
included.
over.
I hated that moment. Like that
It
moment,
was,
like catapulted me to become a Swiftie.
yeah, that moment I think catapulted a lot of people into becoming, if into either becoming a Swiftie or for Swifties becoming like even more hardcore about
Hmm.
her, because it was so disrespectful what Kanye
Totally.
did. Just like,
Hmm.
just terrible. And of course the lore of that goes on and on and on because
I'll never
eh,
forget Beyonce's face. She looked mortified. That
and
poor
she
thing.
was. And that's the thing that
Oh my
I think
gosh.
there are a lot of Beyonce fans who get upset. You see, and this is the problem. And I spoke about this in the first episode, okay? This is the
Hmm.
problem. We have a core wound here, okay?
Hmm.
The both the Beyonce fans and the Taylor Swift fans. And now that I'm one
Hmm.
of both, I understand both, okay?
Yeah.
Because for Beyonce, what you have to remember, because now we're fast forwarding to 2009, right? The 2009
Mhm.
VMAs when this happened, right? And by
Yeah.
that point, just to give some more context to how dominant both of these women were, by this point, we have I Am Sasha Fierce that we get from Beyonce. That's her third studio album. And
Mhm.
we have Fearless, which is Taylor's second studio album. They both deliver those albums in, I want to say, '08. Okay.
Mhm.
Beyonce goes on to win 6 Grammys for that album, making her
Mhm.
the first woman in history to win 6 Grammys in a single night. And Taylor goes on to win Album of the Year for Fearless, making her the youngest artist in history to win Album of the Year. So they
Mhm.
both in this time frame are giving us like just things we haven't seen before, from from pop artists, right? That's the situation we're in when they get to the VMAs and this moment happens with Kanye West. But I think the core wound for Beyonce fans is she actually won Video of the Year, right? But instead
Okay, yeah,
of
yeah.
getting up and being able to really accept it and live and cherish that moment, she then hands the mic to Taylor Swift because she knows Taylor, had that whole brush up with Kanye. But like,
Mhm.
this was Beyonce's moment. She didn't have anything to do with that. She didn't tell Kanye
Mhm.
to do that. She didn't ask him to do that. She should have
Mhm.
been able to enjoy this moment of getting
Mhm.
Video of the Year, and she couldn't because she had to hand the mic off. Meanwhile,
Mhm.
Taylor didn't get to enjoy the moment of being, I think what she won was like best pop video of the year, something like that.
Something like that.
And
Mhm.
she didn't get to enjoy that moment because Kanye took it from
Mhm.
her. So both fandoms have a core wound, okay?
Yes.
And it was started
Mhm.
by Kanye. And so what we need to do is all just link up,
I was getting there. I was getting there.
link up against
Mhm.
Kanye. That's what we need to do.
Kanye West is the real villain.
He is the villain, y'all. Why are we fighting
Always
each
has been.
other?
Why? Okay. And
Why?
and also this just speaks again to Beyonce's character. She got up and sacrificed her speech and was like this. I mean, I think Taylor was significantly younger than her.
Significantly,
If
yeah.
if not, it felt like she was, and she was like, "This girl just got like," and I'm not going to stand here and allow a man to do that.
Yeah.
And again,
100%.
I credit that back to her having a strong family unit again. I feel like her mom really just like built this amazing woman.
Yeah, raised her right. Yes, at the
Hmm.
time, Taylor would have been, I think, 19. She was either 19 or 20.
Okay.
And Beyonce was, I think, 27. So,
Okay.
yes, and Beyonce was much older. This was Taylor's first ever VMA. This was a
Yeah.
big moment for her, and her world was shattered. And Beyonce
I
saw that,
know.
and Beyonce gave her the stage and let her have
Mhm.
what was Beyonce's moment. She let it
For sure.
become Taylor's moment. So there's a core wound there, and like I said, let's
Mhm.
all just gang up on Kanye. Okay,
Yeah,
we don't have
I've
to.
hated Kanye West since that moment. I just want everyone to know that.
We do not have to gang up on the two fandoms. So yes,
Mhm.
that. But again, so now we're in, call it 2010, because the
Mhm.
2010 Grammys is where they both won those Grammys for those albums. Beyonce took home her 6 statues. Taylor took home her statue for Fearless.
Mhm.
It was a big deal. Okay. But then what I think is interesting, what happens next for both of them, at least this is my opinion, this is subjective,
Mhm.
but I feel like we see both of them then deliver albums that aren't nearly as critically acclaimed
Mhm.
as I Am Sasha Fierce and Fearless. But in my opinion, are, first of all, really great albums, and second of all, I think really pivotal to like their growth trajectory, because with Beyonce, she releases 4, which among the Beehive is considered top 3 of her albums.
Okay.
For a lot of people, it's just a really, really pivotal album, but it didn't get a lot of critical acclaim. And
Mhm.
it's more, the whole thing is much more of an R&B vibe, so it's, she's kind of taking a step back from the pure pop that she delivered on I Am Sasha Fierce.
Mhm.
And it's just like the vocals are, I mean, some of the best singing Beyonce's ever done. And it's just got like a real groove to it. And I think because the public was so much, was expecting so much from her from a pop perspective, that when she kind of flipped the script, the critics didn't love it. But I think it was really important, because I think what it taught Beyonce was, I what I don't need to do is try and rely on what other people think on me for my art, because I know
Mhm.
I just delivered some of my best work of all time and they don't give a shit about it. So that tells me
Mhm.
they don't know anything.
Yeah. Yeah,
like I
at that point she's singing for herself.
she's singing for herself, because she was
Mhm.
like, if I can work this hard and y'all are telling me you don't respect it, then y'all don't matter. And I think if she
Mhm.
hadn't had that moment and that like understanding of being kind of knocked down a peg, then
Mhm.
I don't know that she would have gone as hard on the next 4 albums we got, which are
Mhm.
all bangers. So I feel like we needed 4 to happen. And
Mhm.
similarly for Taylor, the next albums she released were Speak Now and Red, and I feel like neither one got the same level of acclaim, like didn't win album of the year.
Totally.
um, but Speak Now she wrote entirely on her own. And
Mhm.
for Red, the criticism she got around it being like a little bit, mismatch, like a little bit of pop, a little bit of country, people feeling like, what is this? Like, you're doing too much. I
Yeah.
think if she hadn't gotten that feedback, we may not have ever gotten a fully pop album, 1989, which of
Right.
course was extremely critically acclaimed. So
Pivotal.
it's almost
Mhm.
like I feel like that next step for both of them, to what you were saying, them being a bit more similar than people give them
Mhm.
credit for. I feel like they both had that moment of, oh, the public isn't really feeling this thing that I'm doing that I know is right. And that's actually just going to make me turn it up even more, you know?
Yeah, yeah, totally. And like when Taylor did that documentary, I remember she got the call that she like wasn't nominated for any of these like awards or whatever, and she's just like, "I'm gonna do better. I'm gonna make a better album." Like you could tell there was a pivotal moment there, for sure.
Yeah. 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 100%. Because the album we got after for Beyonce, after we got after four, was her self-titled album, which
Mhm.
now I know you said you haven't listened to all of Beyonce's albums, but do you
Mhm.
remember when she dropped her self-titled album? This was in 2013. Do
I
you?
remember her dropping the album, but I might need a refresher on like what was the hit that came with
So,
it.
well, okay. So, Erica, that's the thing. She didn't
Mhm.
release any singles.
Okay,
And
I remember
she
that.
she didn't let you purchase any singles. You had to purchase
The
the
whole album.
whole album. She dropped the
Mhm.
whole thing on iTunes, and if you wanted to hear any of it, you had to buy all of it.
I love
And
iTunes.
she and
Such a
she
throwback.
dropped it on a Friday, when albums were typically released on Tuesdays, so that
Mhm.
you got a whole 7 days before Billboard updated its charts the following
Mhm.
Wednesday. So you had a whole 7 days to get your album to number one. Beyonce was like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to drop it digitally only, because she didn't want any physical, because if you release CDs, people can, on its way to making it to Target or Walmart or whatever, people
Right.
can open
Rip
one,
it.
listen it, and leak it,
Mhm.
which was happening to
Right.
people. She didn't want any leaks, so she only did it digitally. She dropped it on a Friday, again, because
Wow.
she was like, since I'm doing it all digitally, I want everyone to get the music all at the same time.
Yeah.
Dropped it on a Friday, still made it to number one, by the way, even though she had 3 fewer days
Wow.
of data, and
Mhm.
literally changed the game. Now all albums are released on Friday because of
Oh,
Beyonce.
wow. I did not know
Yes,
that. That's so cool.
literally changed the game.
Yeah, I was about to
So
say that.
I just, it was,
Great.
and I remember where I was when she dropped this album, because I was in
Mhm.
business school and I was
Mhm.
studying for finals, and I was sitting there studying. I was being a good student. And then somebody texted me and said, Beyonce dropped an album. I said, what?
Yeah, I was about to say there was no warning, right? Because I feel
No,
like
there was no warning.
one of her albums there was no warning, and everybody was like, "Ugh, an
Yes.
album came out," which I love that.
Yeah.
I love
And,
when people do that.
and a fully visual album. That's the other thing. And since then, we've seen other artists like Drake, Janelle Monáe, Jennifer Lopez with her terrible music movie. We've seen other artists try to give us.
It's true, but it's so
It's
funny.
I mean, I don't mean to sound shady, but that was the worst display I've, her little visual nonsense
Oh
movie
god,
musical.
that
Oh,
was
it was,
crazy.
I couldn't finish it. I literally couldn't finish it.
We
But
shouldn't have done that. We
no,
just shouldn't
no.
have done that.
God bless to J Lo. But anyway, the
Yeah.
point is, she changed the game, like,
For sure.
literally. And
Mm,
so I just feel like, yeah, Ford didn't get the critical acclaim that it should have gotten, but I think it set her up to give us self-titled, which literally changed the music industry.
mhm.
So, and there's
Love
no
to see it.
denying it. Yeah.
Yeah, agree. Beyonce, I feel like people do forget now that like we're talking about this, people do forget that Beyonce was that girl. Like they weren't there, I think.
Y'all
they
weren't
were
there.
they were in their cribs. Their moms were birthing them. They weren't there.
Y'all weren't there, and it's
Mm,
okay if you weren't there. It's okay if you
yeah.
don't know, because there's plenty of stuff that I didn't know about Taylor until I became a fan in the last year. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't realize, because 1989, not only was it her first fully pop album, but she also won album of the year again, making her the first woman in history to win album of the year twice.
Oh wow.
So Taylor has, I mean, she basically came out on the scene breaking records, because first she was the youngest person to win artist or album of the year, then she was the only person to win it twice. Now, actually, was she the only person or the only woman? Let me fact check that. Hold on. Only woman. Okay.
Okay.
I want to make sure I'm saying that right. She making her the only woman to win it twice. I do believe other artists, male artists, had won it twice. So, that's something
Mhm.
about her, honestly, that I didn't really know until I became a
Yeah.
fan. So when you talk about like the dominance of these women in the music industry, from changing the landscape, literally changing how albums are dropped, becoming the
Mhm.
second or only the first woman to win album of the year twice, like these women
Yeah.
are really, they've really been about that life for quite a while.
Totally. I think a lot of people need to learn the lore. For me, I have to learn the lore to become a super fan. And
Yeah.
like the last couple years, that's kind of what sent me into the Taylor world, is when they re-released All Too Well 10-minute version. And
Hmm.
I'm like, I missed all of this. I'm like going back through the Jake Gyllenhaal stories, and like
Hmm.
when you
Hmm.
really go back and learn some of the Beyonce lore, I feel like you'd get it more.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
get it more.
Yeah. Totally. Well, and one thing I will say, because I spoke about how Beyonce changed the game, one thing that I think a lot of people who aren't Taylor Swift fans don't realize is that she also has really influenced the music industry. So
Mhm.
one thing I remember when she pulled her music off of Spotify. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. Mhm.
Yes. So she pulled her music off of Spotify in 2014. So this was after, she released 1989. And
Mhm.
basically, she did it in protest over the low
Mhm.
royalty payouts for artists. And this wasn't something that she was just fighting for herself. Like, she was saying, in general,
For sure.
artists need to be paid for their work. In fact, a direct quote from an op ed she wrote in the Wall Street Journal was, "Valuable things should be paid for. It's my opinion that music should not be free." And she didn't let her
Mhm.
music back on the service until 2017. And then
Mhm.
also, because I kind of recalled the Spotify thing happening, but I didn't recall in 2015, she threatened to keep 1989 off of Apple Music, which at the time was just about to launch, because they had
Mhm.
announced that they were not going to pay royalties during the free month trial that they were offering people.
Mhm.
And Taylor was like, "Nope, I'm not going to put my
Yeah.
album on your service if you do that." And they literally, like, next day, made an announcement they were changing their policy. So
Yeah.
that did not just help Taylor, like, that has helped every
And
artist.
I remember that people were mad at her. Like, she was trying to get everybody paid, and people were mad at her.
Yep, that's a good point, because I do remember people
Mhm.
being upset with Taylor about that. And I
Mhm.
remember at the time I wasn't a fan. I wasn't a Taylor Swift fan, but I certainly wasn't
Mhm.
mad at her. Like, I thought what she
Yeah.
was saying made sense. Like, yeah, you work really hard to put out this music. Why
Mhm.
would you want people to be able to access it like for free? Like, and you don't get paid anything. Like, that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Silly.
And so her influence in that regard, I think you can't overlook. And that's something that I think when people try to hate on Taylor,
Mhm.
they don't bring up the fact that, like, well, but she actually was fighting this fight on behalf of all artists. She wasn't just saying, "I want to make sure my check is right." She was
Mhm.
saying all artists deserve to be paid fairly for the music that they're putting out, and I don't think she gets enough credit for that.
Yeah. I agree.
So, continuing on in our timeline, we have traveled
Mhm.
from 2001 to now
Mhm.
2015. Then we get to 2016, and
Mhm.
Beyonce puts out Lemonade,
Mhm.
which to this day
Wow.
I still say is her number one album, which is hard for me to say because
Mhm.
she's released so many good albums. But I just, not only was it just like such a good album, but again, she changed the game because she dropped, she this time she gave us a visual album. I'll never forget how much this blew my mind. She gave us a visual album. Okay, but she did it on HBO and had us
Right.
all sitting like we were watching Game of Thrones. I invited people over. I had snacks, okay, in order to watch what was essentially an hour-long music video. That
Yeah.
just was never done. That just is not something that was done.
That's so true, because I remember that I didn't have HBO, and I was like, "Dang, I guess I'm not gonna get to watch it." And I've since seen, like, bits and pieces of it, but I still don't have HBO, so
Oh my God. Well, that's the other thing is, like, we had HBO. So we were like, we invited friends over because
Yeah.
not all of our friends had HBO.
Right, yeah, yeah.
And we streamed it, and I mean, blown away. I just remember how many times something would happen and we were just like,
Oh
because
my gosh.
she was telling the story of being cheated on by Jay-Z.
And so
And none
much
of us
tea.
even, right. And her lead single,
Mhm.
if you recall, was Formation. Formation wasn't about that
Mhm.
at all. So we
Mm-mm.
didn't know that that's what we
Mhm.
were going to be sitting down to. And we didn't know what we were going to be
Yeah, this
sitting
was the
down
album
to.
with Becky with the good hair, right? And everybody's
Yes.
like, "Who's Becky?"
Yes, this is Becky with the good hair.
Mhm.
She interspliced every single song with this poetry by, I'm forgetting the poet's name, but this amazing young Black poet that
Oh,
and so she
yes.
was giving us the poetry in between each song. The visuals were so stunning. And mind you, nobody knew what we were sitting down to. This is what I think the young folks don't understand. Imagine sitting down to watch something and you have no idea what it is. You don't know if it's a
Mhm.
concert. You don't know if it's a music video. You
Mhm.
don't know if it's a documentary. She could just be sitting there reading the phone book to us for an hour. Literally, we
Mhm.
didn't know anything, okay, when we
Mhm.
all sat down to watch this thing. So imagine you don't know what it is and then you get lemonade. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, and to put
Unreal.
it into their own perspective for the Swifties, it's like sitting down for TTPD, and all of a sudden, towards the end of us listening to it all together, she drops the second part of it, and we're like,
Yes.
it's just like
Yes.
that.
Exactly. Thank you for putting it into Swifty speak, because yes, like
Mhm.
y'all forget, and this is another thing. I think some Swifties are newer to this, so they
Mhm.
don't understand that Beyonce has already had these moments, these
Mhm.
surprise cultural impact mic drop moments that
Mhm.
you see Taylor having. Beyonce already had them. Like we
Mhm.
were all dumbfounded, blindsided when she
Mhm.
dropped the Lemonade movie, musical, visual album, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
We were dumbfounded.
Mm. Which totally changed my perspective of Jay-Z, by the way, because I was just like, "Oh, I love them together. They're so cute together." And then that album came out, and I was like, I hate him. Not hate him, but like I mean, if she could forgive him, I can too, I guess. But it just changed my view. I was like, who cheats on Beyonce?
Well, truly. And I
Like,
remember a lot of people felt like, because, she tells the album is an arc, and it goes from her wondering if he's cheating on her to her realizing he's cheating on her to like then the
mhm,
aftermath of it. And then by the end, the final song, All Night, she's back in love with this man. And I
yeah,
remember a lot of
yeah.
people being like, girl, we weren't ready yet. Like basically, like, we understand you got there, but we did not
Hmm.
get there.
Yes, and if you were still in your crib and you weren't there, let me just tell you, everyone speculated that Becky with the good hair was Gwyneth Paltrow, and Gwyneth actually had to come out and make a statement and be like, "It wasn't me, guys."
Yeah, actually, there were multiple people, I think, who came out being like, it's not me. Like
Not me.
people were speculating it was Rihanna. I mean,
Mm.
a lot
I
of
didn't hear
folks were
that
being
one.
speculated. So I think
Mhm.
a number of people had to be like, excuse me, I'm not Becky with the good hair. Okay.
Mhm. I know. I remember that. And even I was like, "Who is it?" Because I love the drama.
Right.
I'm like, "I need to know. I still wanna know
Hmm.
right now."
Yeah. Amazing. So that was
Mhm.
2016. We get Lemonade.
Mhm.
And I like this quote. There's a quote from this article in The Guardian when it came out. And they said, it is not an exaggeration to say that there is no other living musical artist who could ignite such a broad and unavoidable conversation just by releasing a new album, even a visual one, and it's her second visual album, or who could turn an hour-long visually narrative film for that album into a Saturday night watch with your friends event on subscription cable channel. And they are not
Yes.
wrong. They are
Very
not wrong.
similar to cut to later, the Eras Tour on
Mhm.
Netflix. That's what it's on, right?
Mhm.
Netflix?
It's
Or
on
no, Disney
Amazon.
Plus, Disney Plus,
Oh,
right? Oh.
Disney Plus. Yes. Yes. The original, she put it on two different streaming services. She
Okay,
put the
okay.
original one, I think, on Amazon Prime, and then she re-released it on
Okay.
Disney Plus. Yes.
Mhm. Paved the
Cut
way
two.
a little bit. I mean,
Hey,
not
I
to like
mean,
not discrediting because I love Taylor Swift, but it paved the way a little bit.
do you see? And this is why I
Mhm.
feel like there's room to love both of them, because they are both
Totally. Queens.
they're both queens.
Yes, they are.
I
They both
mean,
are. Full circle.
full circle.
And
Full
I feel like
circle.
they're friends. I
I
think people are
definitely
missing
think
that.
Yes, they definitely are, at the very least, two people who have a lot of respect for one another. Are
Mhm.
they friends who like text all day back and forth, besties?
Probably not, no.
I don't think so,
Mm-mm.
no. But
Mhm.
I think they definitely have real respect for one another. They like each other, they're cool with one another. They like how both of them move in the world. As
Mhm.
Taylor Swift herself said in her Instagram post, like Beyonce has paved the way for her and so many other artists. That's what Taylor said.
Mhm.
So there's just no
Mhm.
reason to think that these two in any way need to be in competition with one
Yeah.
another.
Yeah, and you can't convince me after that Kanye thing that Beyonce didn't give her, like, a little bit of advice, because that's just, like, who Beyonce is, right? Like,
Hmm.
"Hey, I've been in this industry for this amount of years, like, stay away from Kanye West."
Yeah.
Or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
I could go in on
Totally.
Kanye West for days.
I know. I know. And maybe that'll be its own bonus episode. We can just go in on Kanye. Like,
Totally. Oh,
all
man.
right. Well, we've now made it through 2016.
Mhm.
In this time frame, because and then in 2018, Beyonce headlines Coachella, making her the
Okay, yeah.
first Black woman to do it.
Ooh, I love that.
But
Mhm.
in this time frame is when we get even more of the Kanye drama, because we get Reputation from
Mhm.
Taylor, which was essentially her response to Kanye and Kim outing her as a so-called snake because
Mhm.
of her reaction to his song Famous. And
Mhm.
we don't have to get into all of it because we already did an episode about Taylor and Kim
Mhm.
Kardashian.
Well,
Um,
we do want to touch on it a little bit
mhm.
because I don't know if you know this, but when they released this Billboard list, somebody from Billboard went on Instagram Reels and took the photo from Kanye's music video of that wax figure of Taylor naked and congratulated her on second place with it. And then people raged because obviously it wasn't a real photo of her. And then they had to remove it, take it down, and
See
apologize.
that? Okay. I
That's shady.
saw that. First of all, that's extremely shady.
Mhm.
Second of all, I actually never saw the post. So I didn't understand what was happening because I was just seeing people on TikTok say Billboard put up this video, or they included, the way it was being phrased was they included the photo. And
Mhm.
so what I thought happened was that there was some like photo montage, and
Mhm.
that one of the photos was like a still image from that video, which in and of itself would have been bad. But you're saying
Mhm.
somebody just posted that photo as a
So,
congratulations photo?
I saw it after, so I didn't see anything else included in it. There could have been, and maybe the person I watched it from cut it out, but from what I saw, it was like 3 or 4 images of that music video clip where she's, like, laying there in the bed, and it doesn't even look like her, but whatever, the wax figure, but, like, why are we even putting that in there? To
That's
congratulate someone on second place of
that's
being the best?
crazy.
What?
Oh my god.
Yeah, which kinda ties it back to the Beyonce drama. It's like they're, like, doing it on purpose. This is why I say Billboard's
Yeah.
messy. They're
Billboard is messy.
messy.
That's
Mhm,
extremely messy because
mhm.
she never approved the use of her image for that video.
Right,
She didn't even want to be a part of the song, as we all know,
right.
everything that went down with it.
Mhm.
So, oh boy.
It's
That's
messy, it's
terrible.
messy. And then, of course, people went crazy. They found out who put the reel up. They found her LinkedIn. They wanted her fired. It was like a whole thing. I was like, "Dang, this drama is
Oh.
serious."
Woo, Swifties don't play,
They don't
boys.
play. They don't play. Tay voodoo.
Oh my God.
Mm.
Well, this feels like a good moment for me to parenthetically cite that I too am a Swiftie. I don't want
Yeah.
anybody coming for me. Okay. I
Mhm.
love Taylor as well. I'm trying to give
We
a
are Swifties,
comprehensive
yeah.
review of how
Mhm.
both she and Beyonce are amazing and have done
Yeah,
amazing things
they're
in this
both the
industry.
greatest, and Billboard's trying to pit them against each other.
Okay. Right. So now we can blame Kanye and Billboard.
And
Okay.
Billboard.
But we don't have to blame the two of them. And
Start
then,
a
okay.
list.
Okay, so then we get to, so yes, we get Reputation, which is an answer to everything that happens with Famous. Then we get Lover. And by the way, neither of those albums are that critically acclaimed. I think, I love
At least
Reputation.
at the time, right?
At the time,
Mhm.
I love Reputation personally. I
Me
think it's
too.
one of her best albums.
Me
Lover, to
too.
me, I don't want to make anyone mad, but I think it's her weakest album. Well,
Mm.
of the ones I've listened to, I've still have never listened to Debut, but of the
Mm.
albums I've listened to, I think it's the weakest, but I know lots
Yeah.
of people love it. I know lots of people love it.
Reputation was one of my favorites. Then I kind of got pretty into Midnights. I know people don't like love that one, but I loved that one. And then obviously I'm obsessed with TTPD right now. So, but
Yeah.
Reputation I loved because I loved her calling out Kanye and Kim. I
See,
lived for that.
and I love Reputation because I think it's a perfect pop album. I actually like it more than 1989. I just think every song is a bop.
Yeah.
I just I think it's perfection.
It's
And
like
then you also get
empowerment.
angry. Yeah, you get angry Taylor. So it's like every song is a perfect pop song, but you also get that anger behind it, which I feel like when you get angry Taylor, it's even better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Were you there for the snake incident? Like, do you remember people putting the snakes in
Yes.
her? Okay, yeah, because I
Yes.
remember the snake thing, and for her
Mm-hmm.
to come back and do a clap back was like, I was like, get it, girl.
100%.
Loved
Oh
it.
yeah, for sure. So now we're into the 2020s because we get to the pandemic
We
and
do.
Taylor gives us two surprise albums. We get Folklore and Evermore. Of course, she wins another Album of the Year Grammy for Folklore, becoming the only woman in history to get 3 Album of the Year Grammys. And then Evermore comes on the heels of it. And both of these are in a pandemic when the whole world is basically shut down. And Taylor's like, I'm just going to go to work, which I personally love. I love that we were all like floundering. We didn't know what was about to happen. I personally was pregnant. And here go Taylor, like, oh, well, got some extra time on my hand.
Yeah, no, really.
She's
She
going to
she really
release
took
these.
yeah, she really took that pandemic seriously. She was like, I'm gonna just write the whole time.
And I think both albums are some of her strongest work to date. So
Yeah.
I definitely fully support the album of the year for Folklore. I thought it was just like such a fantastic album, still my favorite. And I just think in terms of the back-to-back surprise of it, again, just one of these things that feels like breaking norms. She also gave us different genres here because
Yeah.
Lover was such a pop album. Like Lover was pop, Reputation was pop, 1989 was pop. So for her to just like completely switch and give us like, I guess we're calling it indie folk, for Folklore and Evermore, I think was just also such almost a gut punch. Like, oh, okay. I feel like it almost made the
Yeah.
world wake up a bit for Taylor. Like,
It's
oh,
like,
we
oh,
thought
she
you were
could do
just doing
stuff.
this one thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can do this too, which was really awesome.
At the time, I didn't feel this way, but now that I've listened to TTPD, I feel like she was holding back on those albums for things that she couldn't say when she was producing and writing with the man she lived with. And there was maybe things on her heart that she couldn't say at the time, but she had to wait until the breakup to say or release.
Interesting. Okay. I could believe that. I mean, I think when you love someone and you're in a relationship with someone, like, yeah, you are going to hold back. You're not going to put,
Yeah.
I could absolutely believe that. And, I will also say, credit where it's due to Taylor. I think another thing that I don't know if it's true to say she pioneered it, but I think in some ways perfected it, is just like this level of engagement with her fans where it feels like a two-way street.
Totally.
And I think there are going to be artists who try to replicate that for decades to come. And it feels like it all came very naturally to Taylor. Like some people will say she's super calculated. And look, she herself said that she's a mastermind. So I definitely think she is strategic for sure.
Yeah.
But it does also feel like it's come from a pretty genuine place of wanting the fandom and engagement to be more than just like a look at me, I'm the person on stage, I'm the star, and really wanting it to be like, hey, we're on this journey together. Like I want to do something surprising and you want to figure out what the surprise is. So I'm going to plant these Easter eggs so that it gets to be this fun riddle for you. And we're kind of in on this together. Like I think we're going to see artists trying to replicate that for years to come.
And I think it's going to be hard for them to do it. I feel like for whatever reason, she's got this magical feeling to her as if you're friends with this very genuine person, even though we aren't friends. And I feel like Beyonce has like a different vibe where she has more of a boundary put up. She's like, this is my life. And to that also might be a little bit a part of she's got children. she's a mom, and there's kind of a different vibe when you're trying to protect kids than when you're just protecting yourself.
Yeah.
So I think there's a different vibe there, but they really, I feel like, have been probably learning from one another most of the time,
Yeah. Well,
you
and
know?
so that's the thing. I mean, Taylor, as open as she is with her fans, I do feel like she has started to close that door a little
For
bit. We've spoken
sure.
about this on other episodes.
Mhm.
And I think a part of her looks at like Beyonce and is like, yeah, you know what? I don't feel like I need to owe everything, every thought, every feeling
Mhm.
to my fans
For
in order.
sure.
Like I've reached a level of success where I don't have to do that. So I do feel like she
Mhm.
has closed the door a bit.
Mhm.
But that said, she still, I think, is more open and does more engaging in the everything, the Easter egging and the riddles and the whatever puzzles and all the
Mhm.
rest, like more so than other artists, because I think she really does enjoy like
Yeah.
engaging with her fan base on that level and
Totally.
different surprise songs every night for 2 years,
Yeah, that's
mashups where she's
crazy.
telling, basically like a little story about what's going on with her
Right?
life via the mashups. Like
Mhm.
she really cares and she knows her fans really have come to expect that and enjoy that. And I think it's really special.
And constantly I'm like, "Where does this woman find the energy to do this?" And I think
Hmm.
I'm tired. I don't know I don't know how she's
Yeah.
doing it all.
Yeah. She's
Yeah.
on a different level. And I just feel like, because now we're into the 2020s. These last 4 years, I feel like their dominance has really continued. To me, what we've seen from Beyonce in terms of her Renaissance album and Cowboy Carter, I just don't think you can overstate the cultural impact of
For
either
sure.
album and her ability to take these genres that were invented by Black people, but people like to forget that and
Mhm.
reclaiming them. And also with Cowboy Carter, like forefronting other Black musicians in country, like
Mhm.
Shabuzi, who's now just had like the biggest fucking year of all time.
Yeah.
Like,
Totally.
I just think the cultural impact cannot be overstated. And
Mhm.
she just continues to like innovate her sound and switch genres, but not just switch genres, but like it almost feels like she creates her own genre when she does it. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, you thought this
Mhm.
was country, like no, now this is country. What you thought was country, no, now it's
Right.
this. And
Ah.
it just
I
is.
liked the country album. I
Oh,
really
I
liked it,
loved it, and
especially
I
because 'cause I'm not a big country person. So then when
100%
I
I
listened to
agree.
it, it made me more of a country person.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm not a country person at all, but I loved that album. And then with her, dance album, Renaissance, like I'm not really a dance music type of person. Like I'm not the
Mhm.
person who's going and listening to house, but she
Mhm.
put out a house dance album and it was like the best thing I've ever heard. So
Yeah.
I just her brain, the fact that it works like that and creates these like culturally significant genre bending moments that you
Mhm.
almost can't even fathom until she hands it over to you and you're like,
Mhm.
"Oh yeah, this actually makes
Yeah.
complete sense,"
See, and that's how
is
I feel about
amazing.
both of them, you know? And I feel like people are like, "This one's better than this one." And in reality,
Mhm.
they are both a force, and they're both, like, doing different things, but they're the greatest at the different things, if that makes any sense.
100%. Yeah,
Mhm.
totally. I agree with you. I think they're both so good at what they do. I think what they do is different in a lot of ways, and I think sometimes what you'll see amongst the fandom is people will point to those differences and say like this is better than that, where I think our lives are being enriched because we have two different people at the top of their game doing things differently. If they were both doing the same thing the same way, we wouldn't need two of them, you know?
Yeah. No,
so
totally.
so
Totally.
I just feel like we're enriched because we have access to both artists and the way that they both think, the way that they both create music and put music out into the world. I think is just like really exciting and something to cherish and be excited about,
Mhm.
where yeah, a lot of people see it as reasons to pit them against one another.
Yeah, and we're never seeing that with the top men.
Never. No.
Never. It's a woman thing. Billboard. Billboard
continues
was
to
just
be.
like, who will everyone fight over the most? Okay, let's put them at the top.
Well, and I mean, they had to be at the top because truly no other
Yeah,
two people would have made sense.
for
They
sure.
had to be at the top, but they knew no matter who they said, people would get upset whether they put Taylor at number one or Beyonce at number one. Like the other fan base would have gotten upset. And I just sort of feel like, but what if we just had the conversation about why both of them are so dominant? I mean, Taylor just had the highest grossing tour of all time. She's been on tour for 2 years doing surprise songs every night. Like, obviously she's fantastic and amazing, and Beyonce just had a number one album in the genre of country music. No Black woman has ever done that. And when she released her first album in 2003, by the way, over 20 years ago, none of us ever thought that she would do it, and yet here we are. Can't we just be celebrating these accomplishments? Like, my God, it's wild what they've both accomplished.
It's insane. It truly is insane. And it's like, why can't we just be happy? Why do we have to argue with each other? I don't understand. And I just hope that they don't see it online and are like also upset about it. Like, I hope they just ignore it.
Yeah. And I'm sure they do. I'm sure they texted each other and were like, haha, this is funny, girl.
yeah, totally. I love that. That's it for this week, everyone. Be sure to follow us on TikTok at 2 Queens, 2 Crowns, and to check out the podcast on YouTube, 2 Queens, 2 Crowns.
Erica and I would also love for you to follow us on our personal socials. I'm on TikTok at IM_KJ Miller and YouTube with the handle I am KJ Miller. And Erica's on IG at Let a Be Know and TikTok at Let a Bitch Know. We'll see you next week.